Hello everyone, don't forget to hit that like button and welcome to another episode on the Racco Strength and Fitness channel. Today I'd like to talk to you guys a little bit about plyometric training, or perhaps maybe some of you know this as jump training. Plyometric training doesn't always have to revolve around jumping. Jumping can be considered part of plyometric training, whereas plyometric training does not always have to be jumping. It's kind of like the square is a rectangle, but a rectangle isn't always a square logic. Both are explosive, and that's their common denominator. But we can dissect that a little bit later in the episode. Let's take a look. In short, plyometric training is when a muscle reaches a maximal contractile force in the shortest amount of time. This means that the movement is very, very explosive. In fact, if you even break the word plyometric down into its base Greek, it's plyo, which means more, and metric, which means measure. Altogether, it means a greater measurement. You may have heard plyometric training also referred to as jump training. This would be a little misleading as you don't necessarily have to jump to be performing plyometric exercises. Again, let us refer to that square and rectangle description. While jumping is a form of plyometric training, just as a square is a type of rectangle, plyometric training does not have to be jumping, just like a rectangle does not have to be a square. But by nature of jumping being an explosive movement, I understand the confusion to some. Without getting too technical, plyometric training is a combination of using the elasticity of your tendons and the contractile strength of your muscles to get one big maximal contraction. Now, to get a little more technical, it makes use of your body's stretch shortening cycle to build elastic energy to allow for a more forceful contraction. Now, I'm sure you're saying this all sounds great, but how does it actually work and how can I properly incorporate it into my training? Let's start with that first question of how it works. In order to build up elastic energy in your tendons, you need to put them through a lengthening period. We generally call this a pre-stretch or counter movement. Think about if you were going to jump as high as you could. You wouldn't just jump from a standing position, would you? No. You'd probably at the very least bend your knees a little bit before jumping. This is a counter movement or pre-stretch. As you pre-stretch, you lengthen your tendons and build up more elastic energy in them. When this tension buildup is followed immediately by a concentric muscle contraction, total force production is increased. So you see, it's the combination of the pre-stretch, which causes a lengthening of the tendons, followed immediately by a maximal muscle contraction that allows us to produce maximal force in a particular movement. Now that we understand how plyometrics works, how can we use this knowledge to help build our training program? As a general rule of thumb, we always want to do our most explosive or strenuous exercises first, of course following a thorough warm-up. This is when we are freshest and fatigue hasn't yet set in. So in the case of plyometrics or strength exercises, which would we do first? Plyometrics are explosive, heavy strength movements are strenuous. Which goes where? Here's where you can find a little wiggle room in different training philosophies. In my own programming, I prefer to do plyometric training before strength training. I'm fresh, I'm not yet affected by fatigue, and since most plyometric training is done with minimal or no extra weight, the fatigue effects from it are minimal at most in affecting my strength lifts. Another fairly popular method is supersetting a strength exercise with a related plyometric exercise. For example, performing a heavy set of squats, followed immediately by box jumps. The theory here is that by grouping these similar exercises in a superset, the effects of the strength and explosive exercise mirror each other, and you're fatiguing them both together, so there isn't any negligible effects on either. That's all for me, everyone. I hope you were able to learn something that you'll be able to apply in your future training. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel for more training content in the future. Happy training, everyone, and remember, grab the bull by the tusks.